But at any rate, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it. And I would love to begin our journey into your work by asking you, first and foremost, 4 years ago, this pandemic was quite a thing. We were trying to navigate and figure out how long it was going to last. How did you ultimately survive that time? And how did it change the way that you do things now?
So to being a speech therapist, I was working in early intervention. We had to shift to Zoom therapy, which is with 2-year-olds, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
A
Uh,
lot more parent involvement on their end, having to create like these different, you know, environments of, you know, having a camera on a puzzle and doing all these kinds of things and having to really be remote. In the hospital, we had a lot of patients not come because they were so scared. So I work with adults 2 days a week, and
okay.
they were so scared of COVID, and at one point we had so many COVID patients. So that's, as far as like the hospital setting, we had a lull at first because everybody was scared, and then we were just in it and dived in craziness. And then, my son has special needs. He had a brain injury when he was 13 months old and had a stroke, and he's now 11. But at the time, they were, 4 years ago, he was in what grade? He was in what, second grade or something, and or first grade. And Zoom school was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was a real nightmare because we had to be balance work and then having to be with him on Zoom and do all of his therapies, occupational therapy, physical therapy, adaptive PE, speech therapy, all via Zoom. So I got to see it as a clinician side and also as a parent side, which was just a roller coaster,
Yeah.
crazy. So glad that's over.
Well, and I think that of all the people that have been affected, of course, the frontline workers in healthcare have been affected adversely. But I think all of these kids that lost the socialization and that like immersion into the real world really, really took a hit. And we're seeing the residuals of that. I mean, there's still kids that can't operate on the grade level they're in, that their interactions weird. A lot of the kids kind of were passed along at that time, given grace because of what we were living through. So there's a level of them that just it just scrambled so many marbles for the kids, I think.
Yeah, and working in early intervention, we just saw a lot more kids that were these pandemic babies, right? And they were just not being socialized. And
Yeah.
they were going out of the house and having these masks on. And so when they would come to the preschool, they would still wear their masks, until, the last year or so. And so a lot of them were just not talking because they had this thing on their mouth, just kind of covering their face. And I had one kid who I started working with him, and he did not want to take his mask off. He was just so scared.
Yeah.
And now he's very, very verbal. But we saw so many kids, like an influx of children who just were late talkers because of this period of time.
Absolutely. Well, and I have a great respect for speech therapists out in the world. My son, as I mentioned before we got on, he's on the spectrum, and he had speech therapy early on, and he didn't talk till later on. I mean, I don't think he was. Everything blurs together so much, but it was very, very late, and I really didn't know if he was going to talk. And I remember asking his therapist at one point. I said, "I'll just tell me. I'll be able to take it. Is he ever going to speak?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, he'll talk." And now he's like a CIA investigator. He's asking 1,000 questions to everybody all the time. So it is amazing how the therapy just turns keys in their brain and gets that linguistic center of their head operating in a way that can allow that language to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's really hard to predict when a child is going to start talking, but you can see the wheels turning in the child as well. And I have this child right now I'm working with. He's doesn't have very many words, but you can see like his mouth is trying to make a sound or trying to imitate, but he's just not there yet.
Yeah.
But I'm like, he will be. He will
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, I always remember that. It was very clear and there was no doubt. Yeah, they'll speak. And there was sign language and things, the little steps here and there, but it's like with anything in life. It just takes time, and we're so impatient, especially in this country with things having to happen right now. that, it gets there. So let's get into the heart and soul of the work that you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
Oh, okay. What do I do for a living with um I get to play a lot of times. With my early intervention, I get to play. I get to, get down into the minds of a child and just be super animated and just, open up the abilities for them to communicate and to learn, and that's the fun part of it. um, when I work with adults, it's great too. But my passion is really with early intervention. That recently wrote my book about language strategies, and I think that parents and caregivers, we don't get training on how to work with children. We have these kids, but we don't get to learn how to do language development, create opportunities to practice language. And I think I kind of fell into speech therapy. I wanted to be a physical therapist at first because I had a grandfather who passed away when I was 8, and I wanted to be able to help someone like him more. And when I went to school, I studied English literature and creative writing because I knew I needed a master's degree to really make a difference in the therapy world. And when I finished my bachelor's degree, I was very torn. I was like, do I want to do physical therapy, or did I want to teach English, or what did I want to do? And someone mentioned, have you thought about speech therapy? And I didn't really know what it was at the time. And when I delved into it, I was like, this is really up my alley. It really incorporates language, communication, and helping people. So, in a nutshell, I get to help people by, playing and creating this environment where they can have opportunities to really, practice language and be great communicators.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
I was like, I want to be a teacher, and I had really great teachers growing up, and then as I got older, I was like, wow, teaching is really hard. As you become a high school student and a college student, you're like, this is difficult. Not just teaching the material, but teaching a classroom of kids who have they're all different minds, and I was like, I don't know if I could teach all day. So when I was thinking about being an English teacher, I thought a professor. I'm going to teach for an hour, get these kids out of here, and but not. I don't think I could be a teacher all day. I give them a lot of credit.
Yeah. So, how did this happen? How did it take me back to where you were talking about being from Hawaii. Tell me how you got this acumen and these skills, the seeds that were planted for you to want to help other people. And also, just where you've evolved to in your life with your profession.
Well, this my I think my mom, she's always playing with kids. We'll be at like a mall, and she'll see a baby, and she'll be like talking to the baby and making funny faces. So I get my playfulness from her, I believe. Um, and like I said, when I was 8 years old, my grandfather got very sick and he passed away. And I just felt very helpless at the time. Like I felt like I needed to be able to help other people. And that's kind of I'm a Cancer. Um, I'm very maternal. I'm very maternal instincts. And so helping people really is kind of ingrained in me. And then when I was going through school, I grew up in an Asian family. It's like you go to school, you go all the way through school and you get a job. So I didn't really take breaks between my high school and bachelor's and my bachelor's to master's. And going through the English literature, I love reading. I've started reading independently in kindergarten, and just continue to love reading and writing. My high school was amazing. We had great English teachers, and we learned how to just we journaled every morning, and so we would write for 10 minutes straight, no matter if we knew what we're going to write or not. And I remember that if you can't write, just write, I can write, I can write, I can write. And that really laid a great foundation for English literature, creative writing. I got a minor in. And then when I got to, like I said, I finished my undergraduate degree. And then I was torn. I was like, do I want to do physical therapy, or do I want to maybe impact other people's lives through writing or through teaching? And then delving into other aspects of therapy, which became speech therapy, right? I really was able to combine the two and help people and use a language background. And I'm really glad I did, because physical therapy is very physical, right? And a lot of my physical therapy friends that are older, they're like, I wish we had thought about doing speech therapy, because they had to transition from working with adults to working with like little babies, and because it's the physical taxing on their body was just too much.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do too much of that at all.
Yeah.
But,
So, who's been a hero for you?
oh, I mean, I'd have to right now say my son.
Yeah.
He's going to be 12 in October, and he's really the bravest and strongest person I know.
Oh, I get that. I get that. Yeah. Um, so if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you find inspirational or fascinating, who would that be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
There's so many. I think one person that definitely comes to mind is Oprah, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Oprah's like a phenomenal person. Just there's she's talked to so many different people.
Hmm.
So she's a great interviewer, and to just kind of pick her brain about how she got to where she is, and uh, what started her dream and the pathway she took, would be so meaningful and just a great day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And she overcame so much too. She had a really rough upbringing. So,
Yeah, she did.
yeah.
She did.
So you have to give a lot of yourself. You're not just going into a job. You have to give a lot to help people to transform their lives, but you also have to hold back to evolve as a human being yourself. What is that every day that gets you up and that motivates you to do the work? What is that for you?
Well, like I said, my son, right? So I have him most of the time, because I co-parent with his father.
Yeah.
But I have him most of the time, and I have to get him up. I have to work hard and do things for him. So he's my biggest motivator.
Hmm.
And when I do have downtime to exercise or whatever, it's not just because of him, but it's inspired by him as well, because I
Yeah.
need to stay physically and mentally fit for him, and also introduce him to other things. Like I love to play pickleball, and he's like love to play pickleball too. Like whenever I go to play pickleball, he's like, can I play too? And
Hmm.
it's great for him, right? Because he had a stroke and everything, so it's a paddle sport, so he can use his dominant hand, but he also needs to work on balance and visual tracking
Oh yeah.
and all kinds of coordination. For me, like to get up and go is to really inspire him, and also to help other people.
So what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Oh, I would say so much. There's so much. I think one would be, you can't take care of others until you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, you don't have to get everything right.
Right. Yeah. So of all of the things that you've accomplished and overcome and become in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Let's see. I would say, um, raising my son, I think he's an amazing human being, and he is a great conversationalist. He's very inquisitive. Um, one of the fun things he does is, I ask him all the time, how'd you sleep? Because I want to know he has a good rest. And when he sees like my friends or his friends, and we're, in a social environment, he'll ask people. So if he met you, he might say, hey, Joe, how'd you sleep last night? And people are really taken back by that because they're like, no one ever asked me how I slept,
Yeah.
So I think creating a great child, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And also, being able to um, create a greater impact on the world um, through speech therapy. I think that's also, and utilizing my knowledge in creating a book and hopefully, training programs to create a greater impact overall in the world. I think that's the the end goal there. But as far as like my biggest accomplishment is having an amazing child, having an
Yeah.
amazing son.
Absolutely. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you, and you can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've led, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you give your younger self?
Don't worry about pleasing people. Um, yeah, don't worry about being a people pleaser, having to say yes to everything. It's okay to say no
Yeah.
and to really focus on where you need to be.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, patients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, wow. Um, Great question. uh, I think I'm a good mom. I'm a good mom. I know that you know, based on all the patients I have and clients I have, I think I'm a really great therapist. And I am, I stay physically fit and I play lots of sports. So I would say a mom, a great therapist, and an athlete in the end of the day.
So if anyone wants to pick up your book, they want to hire you, learn more about you, reach out, any of the good business, where should they go?
They can go to my website. It's playdumandsabotage.com. You get all my information there. My book is on there. They can also connect with me on there as well.
Okay. Excellent. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. I know there's a lot of heavy that can go into discussing things. So thank you so much for doing that and for your story and keep doing the great work.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. It's
You bet.
great.
Absolutely. And before you go, he was born in October. What day was he born?
19.
Okay. I'm an October baby. I was born on the 13th, Friday the 13th. So,
Friday the 13th. My
yeah.
brother is a 10th.
Okay.
And yeah, Libra, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the balance. Yeah. So do you see that in
Yeah.
your son, the balance of things?
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
think so. He's such a great, mixture of me and his dad. His dad and I are very different.
Yeah.
His dad was born in Los Angeles, pretty tough, and I'm born in Hawaii, pretty soft. Just overall,
Yeah.
we both are athletes, so we have that competitive nature in us. But
Yeah.
my son is such a good balance between the two of us.
Yeah.
Like even his dad works in the film industry as a camera assistant, so that's why he's out of town a lot. That's why I have him most of the time.
Yeah.
um, but even though he's not here all the time, I can totally see him in our son. He's
Yeah. That's
so
cool.
good, and he's
Yeah.
such a good, I think Libras are very, my brother's very even keeled too. I never see him fly off the handle, or he handles his family very well.
Yeah.
He's just a very good hearted person.
There's definitely a
They seem
balance
that way
thing.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
definitely sense it.
yeah.
So, well, this has been great. Thank you again. I really appreciate it and best of luck with everything.
Thank you. You too. Take
Thank you.
care.
Take care. You too.
Okay.